Welcome to Alpha Insights. I'm Juniper. Today we're talking cannabis policy wins at the state level and what that means for investors heading into the long weekend. With me is Matt, one of our sector strategists. Matt, great to have you. And remember, if you have questions as we go, you can ask us at stockalpha.ai.
Thanks, Juniper. Good to be here.
Quick housekeeping. U.S. stock markets are closed today. The last trading session was as of Friday, March 6th, and they reopen on Monday, March 9th. So we're not watching price action right now. We're looking at policy developments that could set the tone when markets open. What's the big picture?
The headline is simple. Several state-level moves this week reduced regulatory risk for operators. That matters because a lot of the cannabis story is local. State rules determine what products you can sell, where patients can access medicine, and how revenue gets allocated. Those changes can affect sales and margins once trading resumes.
Give me a couple of concrete examples.
Sure. In Oregon, lawmakers chose not to advance a bill that would have capped edibles at more than 10 milligrams of THC per item, so producers and retailers avoid having to pull or repackage a bunch of products. That's a direct hit avoided to SKUs and margins. It's not immediate fireworks for revenue, but it removes a near-term compliance risk. Then, in Colorado, the legislature approved allowing terminally ill patients to use medical marijuana in hospitals. It's a practical access fix. It doesn't move the whole revenue needle overnight, but it removes a barrier that can steadily increase medical demand over time.
Okay. And there were other state developments?
Yeah, West Virginia's House passed a bill to allocate medical marijuana revenue. Some lawmakers even linked those funds to psychedelic research, which is interesting because it signals broader acceptance of alternative therapeutics. And in South Dakota, lawmakers rejected dissolving the Medical Cannabis Oversight Committee, which preserves regulatory continuity for licensed operators.
Right.
Those kinds of wins, keeping oversight in place instead of scrapping it, avoiding sudden product caps, expanding patient access, they all reduce the chance of surprise shocks that spook investors.
There's also been a lot of media and research noise. How much should investors care about that?
A fair bit. Media pieces and studies shape public perception, and public perception can drive regulation. For example, recent articles looking at reproductive health and teen use perceptions, these are the stories policymakers notice. So when you see a flurry of research or high-profile coverage, treat it as a potential policy catalyst, not just clickbait.
So the real question here is, what should listeners actually watch for when markets reopen on Monday?
First, state legislative calendars. More bills will surface in state houses, and packaging, potency, or patient access rules can appear quickly. Second, regulatory stability indicators, things like whether oversight bodies stay intact or get restructured. Third, flows and positioning. Watch the AdvisorShares Pure U.S. Cannabis ETF as a sector barometer. And keep an eye on company-specific names like TrueLeaf, Green Thumb Industries, Curaleaf, and Tilray Brands for earnings or local exposure that could move sentiment.
Interesting.
And don't forget federal signals. A state-level win is helpful, but anything on banking, taxation, or rescheduling at the federal level would be a much bigger catalyst. So keep an eye on Congress and federal agencies for any movement.
A few quick investor FAQs. Will the failed edible cap in Oregon immediately spike sales?
No, you shouldn't expect an overnight boom. The main thing is it preserves current product assortments and avoids transition costs, which supports margins and reduces downside risk. So, constructively bullish in the medium term, but not an instant sales windfall.
And Colorado's hospital access change. Is that a big revenue story?
It's meaningful for access and patient care, but not a giant immediate revenue driver for most public companies. Think steady, incremental demand improvement rather than a one-off surge.
Got it.
One more practical point. Use the long weekend to set alerts. If you own names with heavy exposure to Oregon, Colorado, West Virginia, or South Dakota, mark those positions and watch state-level headlines and any follow-up amendments when trading resumes on Monday. Yeah, that's a good point.
Quick reactions?
Honestly, I was a bit surprised by how much of the week leaned toward integration rather than restriction. But the takeaway is simple. Lower policy uncertainty is generally bullish for operators who can actually execute at the store level.
Hmm.
And remember, public health narratives are a wild card. New studies can shift the conversation fast, so don't get complacent.
Okay, let's wrap with 3 key takeaways for listeners.
1. State-level wins this week lowered near-term regulatory risk and preserve product and access economics. 2. Watch state legislative calendars and the advisor shares Pure U.S. Cannabis ETF for sentiment when markets reopen on Monday. 3. Media and new research remain catalysts. They can influence policy and investor reactions quickly.
Great. If you have questions about anything we discussed today, you can ask us directly at stockalpha.ai. We answer listener questions live. And for more market insights, head over to stockalpha.ai. Thanks for listening and enjoy the long weekend.